Welcome back. I'm just keeping you right up to date on, to me, the most developing story for a Money Monday is what's happening with Bitcoin today, and it is literally on fire. 10,773, almost bumping right up against 11,000. And my thoughts were it would really bounce off this 9,500 support level. That's happening. 10.3 is the number we needed to get through. That's happening. I said maybe tomorrow it'll be 11,000 and maybe 11,000 before the show ends. So I'll keep you up to date on that. But I will tell you that 11,100 is the next place where there's a tiny bit of support, a resistance where it may get knocked down at 11.1. And if it doesn't, if it busts through there with any strength, 12,100 was the 1 year high. So that's the highest it's been in the last 12 months. If it gets through there, all hell could break loose. And if you're long Bitcoin, it's going to be good news for you. Now, more good news for you is I'm joined by my good friend and conservative commentator, contributor to Metropolitan magazine, Jadan Horyn joins us right now. And you know, Jadan, I know we're going to talk about the protests and the riots and all this lawlessness, but I did want to point out that just a couple of weeks back, Jadan was nice enough to invite Frank and I to a gathering, an intimate gathering at his home, which is in New York City. And as a Staten Island, I was like, yeah, I love Jadan, but do I really want to go into the city? And you know, and then Frank said, I can't go, my wife doesn't feel good. And I said, all right, well, one of us has to go to Jadan's party, so I'll go represent for the team. And I'm so glad that I did go into the city and go to the Horyn residence because it was a wonderful night, and I want to thank you and the missus for having me.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure to have you come, John.
Great pad, great group of people. Met Gavin Wax there from the Young Republicans, and just a really cool night. And thank you and the missus again. So I didn't see any lawlessness around your neighborhood, but you live, you know, where the cool people are at. But it seems like you know all these blue cities are just allowing, you know, these lawless societies to exist. What's happening here, brother?
Yeah, I think what we really have here is a phenomenon where we have the politicization of violence, and where we have political parties that are tolerating violence at their fringes because it achieves political ends. A recent poll was conducted where almost 60% of Democrats see that the virus and the attendant protests is something that they could play to a political advantage. And only 6 Republicans saw that that could be played to a political advantage for them. So I think that tells you a lot about what's happening. Democrats, most of them are rightly aghast at the violence that they're seeing. However, they know politically that it will pay dividends for them. And the media complex that so many left liberals are a part of are using it as a weapon to bludgeon President Trump, not understanding the incredibly dangerous effects that it is having. And I just wanted to point out that the violence that we saw in Charlottesville, when roughly 200, that's all they could get out, 200 white supremacists showed up, was magnified by the media to be a incredibly dangerous event for our nation. And rightfully so. We don't want, white supremacists out there marching anywhere. And one person died. And yet over the weekend, we had riots, not protests. We had riots in 6 major cities in the United States in which multiple people were shot and one actually ended up dead. And the media covers it as intense protests because the political aims of the rioters are something that left liberals can agree with, which is the end of, Republican hegemony and Donald Trump as president. And
right.
So the phenomenon we're seeing, John, is incredibly dangerous to the American Republic.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. I'm watching Morning Joke this morning, and the first thing they start talking about is how Donald Trump is sending in federal troops to protect federal buildings, and this is fomenting the anger. This is everything is exploding because Trump sent in the federal troops. No. How about if the mayors stop all this mayhem, he doesn't have to send in the troops. It's not Trump's fault. It's the left and Antifa and George Soros who are paying more to keep this happening. And Jadan, I got to tell you, I really believe that the more they amplify the politicization of this rioting and stuff, I really think it backfires on this bunch of idiots on the left, because Donald Trump's going to be able to stand up there and say, hey, you want that or you want this? I'm sending in troops to keep you safe. They're defunding the police and having a summer of love at your expense. So I think it actually winds up working against them at some point.
I mean, I hope that actually is what happens, but you know, I fear that unfortunately, the American public is not going to see it that way. And I'll say this: on this program, 4 months ago, I came on and I warned that when pandemics occur in history, there is it is followed by massive social unrest. Republicans, this president, our elected leaders, should have had the foresight to know that regardless of whether it would erupt over George Floyd or any other incident, that this would occur on a massive scale with the largest shutdown of this nation's economy in its entire history. The fact that they are not prepared and have not been prepared, and there is not either the political will on either side of the aisle, really, or the media's will to cover this in an unbiased way, tells me a lot about our elected leaders, in that the leadership that we have is kind of what we deserve. And it's very unfortunate, because what our country is facing is the greatest and gravest social unrest in our entire history. In no less than 1,000 cities nationwide, we have had riots of some type, not over George Floyd only, but since then, over the virus response, over demands for justice or equality, or for the removal of federal forces that they believe to be federal forces. And now we have counter riots by right-wing groups that are also seizing this opportunity, because, again, our elected leaders have lacked the foresight. And I have to say, where is our FBI, John, that is tasked with, since 9/11, with identifying domestic terrorist threats, to see the training that these individuals have demonstrated that they have when they attack federal courthouses? Federal courthouses.
Yep. And not for nothing, but when you say, where's the FBI? For the good part of the last 4 years, the FBI has been focused on spying on Trump's presidential campaign, and the whole top of the apparatus was involved. Comey, McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, all these people that were our law and order folks here domestically. They weren't looking at breaking up Antifa or finding out George Soros's financial connections to Act Blue and Planned Parenthood and all these other organizations. Instead, they were trying to frame up a case against Trump and his whole team for Russian collusion, which didn't happen. So you're right, the FBI is almost negligent in this, because I really believe that the peaceful protests that started on behalf of George Floyd's killing were peaceful. And these Marxists, these socialists, these Antifites, these anarchists realized that this was a perfect flashpoint to engage in typical Marxist behavior, radical
exactly right.
unrest.
Look at the racial. Look at the racial outlook of the protesters that came out in the wake of George Floyd. It was actual members of the Black community of all age groups and demographics. The people participating in protests now are overwhelmingly white. The wall of moms in Portland is white. The wall of veterans is white. The agitators are white. It has nothing to do with George Floyd anymore. It has everything to do with anti-government. But back to the FBI, you're absolutely right. Under the 8 years of Barack Obama's administration, he weaponized the FBI, and not just against eventual nominee Donald Trump, but also against his own Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton. Let's not forget that the FBI spent the entirety of 2016 investigating the two major party candidates, rather than investigating groups in the United States that could form an insurrection against it. That is what they spent their time on. That is what our FBI is spending its time on. And we've talked about this on this program before, and people have defended the FBI, saying that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Well, I don't know if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing when we have federal agents who are being attacked, and when we have cities that are being burned by people who claim that they care about one cause, but have never been a part of it until today.
Yeah. Well, I remember that episode where you were talking about this stuff, and that's why you're on the A team. That's why you're always there for us. And Jaden, you got to have me back again, or I got to have you and the missus over to my place to reciprocate. But thank you so much, pal. I appreciate it, and I miss you.
Absolutely. I can't wait till we actually can be together in person. But
yes, that would be fun also. Those were the days. But all right, that's my buddy Jadan Horyn. He's a contributor to Metropolitan magazine, conservative commentator, and he's always there for us. You know him. All right, crack open a cold one. The girls are going to correct my mistakes from today as we do the WTF, and I may go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole right after this.